I love the hunting down there, but um, I love the weather because usually here it's crappy and cold and snowing and
My first memory of actually hunting with my dad was 5 years old. Let's have a special class that hunters would have to pay for, and have a special tag that hunters would have to pay for to be able to hunt these deer on Staten Island. We wrecked it. We shot ourselves in the foot, and then Fish and Game in the last, I don't know how many years ago it was now, they started really putting money into the influencers and so on and so forth, and really promoting the hunts.
so welcome to another episode here of Season Hunter, and Mr. Tobert and I have another guest today, Mr. John Stallone from Arizona, and we'll maybe just do a real quick recap on how we met, John.
Yeah.
Down in Arizona, where I'm sure it's super nice down there right now, is it?
It is. It's starting to get a little hot already. It's like
Is it?
it's unseasonably hot, actually. Yeah, I think we were at 90 degrees yesterday in the middle of the day.
Oh,
And it's still like when you wake up in the morning, it's still in like the mid 50s. And then normally it would heat up, it would be like high 70s, low 80s.
yeah.
But man, we've been hitting the 90s already.
Oh wow. Wow. Yeah, we're happy with when we've been getting 50s lately. It seems like
As highs.
yeah, as highs, yeah. But I mean, spring weather this year's kind of been a little unseasonable too here, but and yeah, but I don't know. It is kind of is what it is. I like Arizona. I really like Arizona weather. Like when I met you in January.
Oh yeah, that's why everybody comes down here, because
Yeah, that's always said that. I love the hunting down there, but um, I love the weather because usually here it's crappy and cold and snowing, and once you get past that Alamo area town towards Vegas, then I think it's called Alamo, something like that, in Nevada. Then it starts getting nice. No more snow, and
yeah.
but yeah. John and I met. We were down there. I was down there hunting coos deer in Javelina, and he's an outfitter. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, John? Your background and
Absolutely. Well, I'm 46 years old. I've been hunting for about 41 years, maybe a little longer than that. But my first memory of actually hunting with my dad was 5 years old, and we shot a buck together. He helped me, or he had me hold the gun with him, and we rested it on a fence post and let the old 35 Marlin rip. It's not something I would suggest. That was a dumb dad move from my dad's part, because it kind of made me gun shy for a little bit.
did it. Where were you living then?
Uh, I lived in New York. I grew up I was born in Brooklyn. I lived there till I was about 8ish, something like that. I don't know whatever first. No, I was six. I was six or seven when we moved to Long Island, and I lived in Long Island till I was about 16. Then I moved to Arizona, so I've been living in Arizona now for 31 some odd years.
Yeah, yeah. That was probably a big change from a city like that, huh?
Yeah, well, see, Long Island is suburbs, and I used to hunt right there. I mean, my dad would take me out every morning with the BB gun, or we go shoot squirrels down the street, and it was it's a lot. It's really still kind of like that over there. It's not. It didn't change that much. Once you get onto Eastern Long Island, like you pass the midway point of Long Island, it gets there's like farmland. It's very suburban, and uh, almost rural. It's pretty rural.
I've always wanted to go to New York. I know, like upstate, I hear is just gorgeous, and had some invites to go hunting, just never pulled the trigger and go on.
That's where most of my hunting was done, was upstate New York. For whitetail,
Yeah.
pretty much exclusively for whitetail. My dad wasn't really a turkey hunter. I guess they never really thought about hunting bears. It wasn't part of my family's from Italy. I'm first generation here. So,
Oh,
the mentality was, go for meat, and they didn't know that, bear meat is excellent. And, that wasn't like a thing.
yeah.
Um, and
Was there a lot of turkeys there then at that time?
yeah, there's a lot of, in Long Island right now, they're trying to add a season, add it. There wasn't ever a spring season. It was just fall season for birds. And, I've killed quite a few in the fall from the tree stand,
Yeah.
but, there wasn't a spring season, but now it's crazy. Like, people getting beat up in the streets from Turkey, like they actually have a problem in Staten Island, which is like in the city,
Yeah.
that's like not suburbia really. That there's turkey. They were like sitting on the park benches. It's crazy.
Wow.
And come
Like pigeons.
seriously, it's bad. It's a bad deal. There's a lot of deer there too on Staten Island, and
Oh,
which is a crazy thing. Um, I've actually talked about this a couple times before, that I've used it as an example. They I don't remember how many millions of dollars they paid for this program to sterilize male deer
wow.
in Staten Island, and they were successful on like $10, and they spent millions. I mean, millions and millions of dollars. And the other thing that was proposed at the time was, well, let's have a special class that hunters would have to pay for, and have a special tag that hunters would have to pay for to be able to hunt these deer on Staten Island. And, we'll allocate X amount of tags, whatever. I mean, they could have killed 100 deer that they would have made money off of.
Yeah.
I would have gladly have done it. I would have paid, a couple $100 for that tag, and
Yeah. Yeah.
$100 easy for that class to take, to be able to effectively do it, safely do it. No, they didn't want to have anything to do with that. So they spent like, I mean, stupid amount of millions of dollars, like maybe upwards of 100 something. It's stupid, like a dumb amount. And,
Wow.
it was a failed project. Um, yeah, they,
Guys out here would slobber over a chance like that.
you know, backyard deer. I mean, whatever, to each his own on
Yes.
the actual hunting part of that. But the whole thing is like, from a management standpoint, like,
Yeah.
just that's when public policy and management, like that's the border right there, where public policy and management, it just doesn't, a lot of the time it just doesn't make sense. Like, they
Yeah.
don't, they make decisions based on, emotions a lot.
Yeah. A lot of times they're not even hunters. I mean, they're just looking at
Well, that's it.
that. They're doing their accounting from their desk. What people talk about them. And yeah.
Yeah, you got to understand, like, in a place like New York, even though there's a lot of hunters there, from a percentage wise, there's way more non-hunters,
Sure.
and even probably even more anti-hunters than hunters.
Oh, I bet.
So it's actually pretty crazy. Actually, there's two bills there right now in Long Island that's going to change the way bow hunting there, and it doesn't make any sense to me. I was working on this morning before you called me. There is a bill proposed to eliminate the use in Suffolk counties, which is all of eastern Long Island, the use of longbows and crossbows. So, and I don't get it, like, because now I could see you saying longbows are traditional archery, because the proximity to public land and private land is like, boom, you're like right on top of, like where I hunt, it's a 5-acre wood lot. It's
Yeah.
public land, but it's surrounded by like $1 million homes. Okay. So if I shoot a deer poorly,
Yeah.
or, with a weapon that's less effective, there's a very good chance that deer is going to run off the property that I'm allowed to hunt on and run into somebody else's land. So I could see that with a longbow. Okay. Right.
Sure.
But then you go the opposite end of the spectrum, which is a crossbow, which is even more effective than a compound bow. I would imagine, like the ability to place your shot, we're talking 20 yards. Yeah. Even though a compound bow is has a longer range and is an extremely effective weapon. A crossbow is equally, if not better, than that, right?
Right.
Um, yeah, so I don't get it. I'm trying to find out the meat and potatoes of why it was proposed, and the 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 sponsoring senator right now he's one of these guys that kind of just wants to please his constituents. So if anybody would comes up with something, he's like, yeah, okay, let's do that. So let's write this bill up, So, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to be working on that.
Part of your Howl for Wildlife, which we'll get into in a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
So quality wise, just out of curiosity, in New York, with it being pretty overpopulated, it sounds like with deer and stuff, is there much quality at all? Maybe certain parts of New York?
Oh yeah, huge. My biggest buck from Long Island, he's a 160-inch deer.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
From Long Island, that's
on my that video is on my my YouTube. It's called Swamp Donkey.
okay.
I haunted this deer.
Oh yeah, I remember. I did watch that. I did. Which we'll put a link when we get done here at the end of this. We'll put a link to your YouTube page as well. And yeah, John. I was on his podcast. It's been a couple, 3 years ago, and when we did meet up there, we just kind of hit it off. We had mutual friends out.
Exactly, with Perry and
Yeah. Perry called me up, says, "Hey, I understand you met." And Perry lives in California. I live in Idaho. John lives in Arizona, and John you were telling me about how your buddy's coming down hunting, and then come to find out it was Perry.
Yeah.
Kind of a small world. It is a small world a lot of times.
Yeah. As big as it is, it's pretty small. Yeah.
Yeah. But John, you've been a successful outfitter now for how many years have you been doing that?
Trying to think, as an outfitter,
Yeah.
like 6, maybe 7 years.
Okay. All right.
I've had my guide's license on and off for 20 years or so, but I'm not. I take myself until we get into like javelina season, which is when I have the most time.
Mhm.
I only take 1 or 2, 3. If I have like a high profile elk hunt or something like that, then yeah, I'm definitely going to be guiding that. When I say high profile, like a really good unit, not necessarily the person who I'm guiding.
Yeah. You're kind of selective though on because I know you're busy. You got a business. You have you're
as I was to say is if I opt to take somebody elk hunting, that means it probably means I won't be able to go elk hunting for myself. You know what I'm saying? So it's mostly about that. Like I only get so many get out of jail free cards from the wife.
Yeah.
So I want to try to optimize, the amount of time I get to spend in the field for myself.
Sure. And you still have your swimming pool business, correct?
Yeah. That's what pays the bills, unfortunately.
You're busy, man. I mean, and I remember when we chatted, in the past we've chatted quite a bit, but I was just thinking, gosh, this guy's just got a lot going on and juggling it. And then I know like today with your kids, you help get your kids off to school and everything, which is awesome. You get that opportunity to do that, which being self-employed makes that.
I mean, that is what my pool business has always afforded me a lot of time because I can run it from my cell phone, especially since smartphone came about. I really don't need to be right there anymore. I mean, information gets shared, pictures get sent, videos get sent, and I'm like, okay, do this text message. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been on a stalk and we got a text message from one of my guys, and I stop and I'm like, okay. And away a text real quick, and I'm back on the stalk, and just like stuff like that. Because of that, though, I've kind of limited my hunting to areas where at the very least, I'm going to have cell phone service in the evenings when I get back hunting, or in the morning before I leave to go out. So that way I can answer emails and take care of stuff and direct whoever I need to direct in the right in the right direction.
That's always been a great thing about the place where we stay, and I know you still stay there some, is that you always know you're going to have service around at least.
Well, Southern Arizona, because of the Border Patrol,
Mhm.
there's cell towers everywhere.
Yeah.
Like when we're hunting down there, I very, very rarely, unless I'm in some crazy canyon or whatever, I very rarely don't have service. And if I don't have service, it's only for a little while.
Yeah.
But
You don't need to use InReach very often.
no, even northern Arizona and Elk Woods, like there's, I mean, you could get out of service pretty easy up there, but it's not that hard to get back in service. It's not like I remember like hunting in Colorado. I had a climb from where we were camped at like 10 or 11,000 feet. I had to climb up to like 13.5 or something like that just to get a few bars so I can get a call out, or I had to drive out 45 minutes to the nearest town.
Oh.
So you don't usually have that kind of a situation, which is annoying. But
Annoying. I remember back years ago, we never even thought about self-service at all.
it becomes such a part of your life. Like,
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's almost a necessary evil. Can you imagine if we didn't have some of the stuff that we do now?
well, look at what we're doing now.
Yeah.
We're talking face to face on a computer, and it wasn't that long ago. If you and I wanted to do this, we would have had to fly. I would have had to fly to Idaho, or you had to come here, whatever. It would have been. It's not feasible. It's not.
Right.
When I first started podcasting, this wasn't available. We did it by phone. Like I did it by phone. I still do it by phone, actually. I think I've had in the past of with my podcast so many times where it sounds, me and you sound great right now. You sound perfect in my headphones. I can hear myself well. And then I go back to the recording and it sounds like shit. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do? So now I've made it a thing where I'm trying to constantly back up with a different type of recorder at some point. Like we're
Gotcha.
recording this on Zoom, but I also have a backup recorder, and you guys are recording on your end with the cameras, and hopefully between the three of those things we have a good audio.
Something decent. Yeah. Yeah. I keep telling Tobert I got to get him down to that Arizona, and the bad thing about that is
it's changed.
Kind of one of those things you get hooked. I mean, the weather, like I said, if nothing else, the weather is just so awesome.
I don't know if you heard about the new changes. Okay.
Like for
and now it's a threshold.
They did go with that for the mule deer?
For mule deer and coos deer both. So it's general. So each unit has an allotted amount of deer, either whitetail or mule deer.
Is it a combo? Like, is there so much whitetail, so much mule deer? Or?
No, it's so much that it's not a total amount of deer.
Okay.
You have a threshold for each species. So
just for non-residents, though, correct?
It's for everyone.
Really?
Non-residents, yeah, which sucks.
Oh. Yeah, I thought last year, weren't they kind of proposing just for non-residents? That's a talk I'd heard.
No, it was never proposed to be separate, but the non-resident take is still the same as if it was a draw. You only have 10%.
Okay.
Like for instance, and this is actually real numbers. Like one unit has 30 deer. You're allowed to shoot 30 deer in it total, which means 3 deer are for out of state.
Wow. Is that, without mentioning the unit you and I hunt down there, one of the ones we met, are you talking about that unit down there?
I'm not talking about that unit, but that unit is not that far off.
Okay.
They rolled this out with really, really conservative numbers. Because the deer herd is really hurting bad.
Is it?
2 years with the drought, everybody was whacking them off of water.
Yeah.
I mean, my outfit. Okay, and we had one guy in 2020, one guy that didn't shoot a deer in archery. And that's typically I think 16 or 15% success rate hunt.
Wow.
Generally. with
Was it water holes?
an outfitter it goes up to about 25, 30. Um, we had one guy and he wounded a deer. One guy go home without a deer. And then the following year, again, we were like 90 something percent success rate. And, I mean, we had some spot stock, but most of them were sitting water and those deer were tied to water. You have a massive drought and only, permanent water in an X amount of spots. And it was bad. And I actually kind of felt bad about it afterwards. I'm like, we shouldn't be doing this, man. We should give these guys an opportunity, right? You have
Sure.
you have this balance in your head. You have this thing in your head. You want to do right by your client and give them the best
Sure.
opportunity possible.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you don't want to hurt the herd, right? But
Right.
the herd got demolished. I mean,
Huh.
we wrecked it. We shot ourselves in the foot, and then Fish and Game in the last, I don't know how many years ago it was now, they started really putting money into the influencers and so on and so forth, and really promoting the hunts. Like, I don't know if you noticed it or not. Like you started coming down here way before it was like a popular thing, but
Oh nine. Oh nine is when I started coming down there.
so 13 years ago, whatever. I would say about 5 or 6 years ago, it went from me seeing a few people in January, never seeing a soul in December, late December.
Yeah.
The rifle, you saw the rifle hunters that got lucky enough to draw a tag, but
Yeah.
never saw a soul down there. Like places that I used to hunt where if I saw 1, 2 guys in a day, like now you're like fighting. Like I had Charles here from Howl, my
The one hunting buddy of yours.
yeah, my hunting buddy, the guy I hunt the most with, I would say he's one really good friend of mine and the co-founder of Howl for Wildlife. And we were here. He was here in January 21, and we almost went to blows with some guys. Like this is like some guys from Pennsylvania. I'm a fairly like even keel guy. I'm very I'll walk away from a lot.
Yeah.
And then there's like this little switch. You get me to a certain point with certain things, and
Yeah.
I do stupid stuff. So I try to practice what I preach for the most part, and just be good to everybody type situation. But then you get me to a point, and I'm the Brooklynese in me kicks in, and I start doing stupid shit. But so yeah, for the most part, I'm pretty good. Pretty good about making sure everybody's and diffusing situations. And
Yeah. Well, we try to be as accommodating as we can, and I always try to look at it as how I want to be treated. But then you get those guys who, no matter what,
yeah,
they're gonna just push it and think that.
yeah. Anyway, so going back to this hunt, if people are planning on coming here, your plans will change. Like if you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go hunt unit so and so. Well, guess what? Unit so and so might be closed by the time you get here, especially in January, because
Yeah.
the threshold starts on the August hunts.
Oh,
Yep.
wow.
Yep.
Good to know.
Yeah. Well, this year it starts on the August hunts. Still,
So, but Javelina didn't change as far as there's
all
still just.
Javeline's a draw, so
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
that won't change.
Wow.
I honestly like I was advocating for this threshold, but now that I'm kind of seeing how they're working it exactly, I don't know that I like it. I don't know that I like it. If I had to, I originally was I was thinking we should do this kind of like Idaho does, right? It should be first come, first serve, and you just put out X amount of tags, and that's it,
Yeah.
right? You know what the statistics are. You know what the what do you call it? The success rates are and whatnot.
Yeah.
Let's just put X amount of tags out there, but and make them in blocks, of units. So like, let's say a 4-block unit, right? You can come hunt this 4-block unit. That way,
Kind of like we have our zones here, you mean?
yeah, basically that way you can separate. Because one of the problems is that we're we're getting a high concentration, like where you met me right down there. That those units get freaking absolutely destroyed thanks to like Randy Newberg and all those other guys. Like you're spouting out the damn unit, or like it's like, so people are like, oh cool, let's go to let's go
Yeah.
here, let's go there.
That's what happened. That's what changed Idaho too. When they changed it a couple of years ago, was those same thing. There was just, a couple, well, there, maybe a handful of zones. Those zones that were being, kind of like the Randy thing, internet blown up and all that, and you get 1,600 guys, non-residents. That didn't count the residents hunting one zone, and yeah, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, and I listen. I've been part of that. I've been privy to that. Like I um I'll hold myself accountable some fault to that as well. I've done plenty of promoting of that, because at the time I was like, all right, this is cool. Let's get more people in Arizona, more people hunting. And I might be able to sell some more hunts, whatever. I thought about it from that, and then I started realizing, I'm like, this is really affecting my own personal hunting, and I don't care. I don't need to guide. I'm not doing this to make money. I do it because I enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
And it keeps the guys that work for me, keeps them working. And but once it starts messing with my own personal hunting, then I'm like,
Well, hindsight, a lot of times you don't realize how much it's really going to affect.
right.
And then all of a
I
sudden,
feel like I should have known better, because I kind of saw it. I saw the writing on the wall, but I don't know. I don't know if I chose to ignore it or what, but I don't know.
ironically, how you says, that area gets hammered, that, where we met. The one buddy of mine, Curtis, that I go down there with, we were talking this last in January. It's the least amount of deer I've ever seen. And we didn't see much javelina either. I mean, literally, and we were in areas that we normally see enough to hunt.
I think the javelina, actually, the population is still very good.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why you didn't see javelina is because the grass was freaking chest high, and you just weren't
Could be.
you'd be looking at them and you wouldn't see them.
Yeah.
Because historically, um, I hunt those units a lot for javelina, and I would go to areas where I always. And so one thing about javelina is, if you find them in an area, typically, if the habitat doesn't change, or there's no drastic changes in water sources or whatever,
Fire or something.
yeah, they're going to be in those year after year after year after year. They choose those areas specifically because of it suits their needs. And that, I mean, that goes for deer and stuff as well, but it's really holds true with javelina.
Yeah.
I would see glimpses of them, and then I wouldn't see them at all. It was so hard to get client. Like, it's the first year, and I don't even know how long. Well, 3 years ago, we had a bad snowstorm, and I had one client shoot and miss. But it's the first year I had a client, like, I mean, he had opportunities. I put him on them, but they were not solid. Like, they weren't like javelina opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody who was a little bit more, well versed in the biggest thing with javelina, especially if you're using a firearm, is being able to locate them in the scope, right? Somebody who had more experience probably would have gotten it done, but it was crazy. It was crazy. It was a crazy hunt, and a lot of it has to do with the visibility, and so.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that when Curtis and I were talking about maybe looking at some different areas for next year, and we did see more people than ever, and than we ever have as well. And like I said, I primarily go down there for Coos deer personally, but We just didn't seem like normal, and I don't know. But it is kind of frustrating because I'm actually surprised that they didn't go since the new hunting license starts in January that they didn't go from January till in December and
Well,
then actually
there's
finish
some
a hunt.
crossover from people having paper tags and so on and so forth. So I think that's another reason why they went really, really low with the threshold.
Uh huh.
They know that there's going to be a certain percentage of people that don't know that they have to check in, so you
Oh
aren't going to get closed. I assume that this system is going to get a little bit more robust, plus once the deer herd kind of rebounds. And I think we had a really 2 years in a row now, or
yeah,
two, this is our second spring, I should say, not 2 years, but last spring and this spring, we've had good rains and good forage for, right before fawns are going to drop and all that other stuff. So I think the deer herd's going to rebound pretty good. And between that and I think they were like honestly being really conservative because of the chance of um, more deer being taken than they really wanted to, that they kept that really low.
yeah.
Um, so we'll see. We'll see in a couple years.
Yeah.
It's a 5 year plan anyway.
Oh, is that what it is?
They're
Okay.
going to reevaluate it for the next and see what changes they have to make. Actually, technically, they have it written that they can make changes, on a yearly basis. But
Oh,
as a whole, as a program as a whole, they'll relook at it 5 years from now.
oh,
So
gotcha. All right. I do want to hear a good story here from you.
okay,
An elk story. Let's hear an elk story.
an
In
elk
a good
story.
area. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about my elk from last year.
Yeah. That
That
sounds good.
was that was a that was a cool trip. So leading up to it, and I drew in Idaho, or drew
Yeah.
whatever I felt like I drew it. I waited online for
It is almost like a draw.
um we got the tag that we wanted, Charles and I. And Charles actually had been hunting in that unit several times.
Okay.
And I had never been there. I hadn't been elk hunting in Idaho since early 2000s,
When
actually.
you could still buy a tag and show up.
Yeah. And I hunted up in the panhandle, and there was a bunch of elk, and that was before the wolves killed everything off over there. And, it was a great hunt. I actually didn't kill one on that last hunt, but I was in them. I had a lot of opportunity. It's just, my own stupidity, I guess.
Did Charles get one?
Charles did not get one. I got one last year, but I'm talking about the hunt before. So
Yeah.
anyway, so leading up to the hunt, we were like, okay, we got this awesome place to stay. Friend of Charles's that he has a cabin out there. So it was uh, like a straight up log cabin, but it had all the amenities. Like, it's a good setup, great setup, and Wi-Fi and everything, like nuts. So it was perfect situation, right? And we're like, okay, well, we'll get this and we'll spike out from here if need be. And we actually went out and set up. Well, Charles actually showed up a day and a half earlier than I got there, and he went and spiked out a couple of campsites for us. And we actually never end up using any of those camps. We just kept hiking in every day and hiking back out every day. It was all
Oh,
hiking. There's no truck access. You could drive to a trailhead, but it really didn't save you all that much time. Um, yeah, it was nuts. We were doing 12. I think we averaged 12 miles a day,
wow.
and
In and out, 12 miles a day.
yeah, in and out 12 miles a day. And we were doing like 2,500 feet in elevation change.
Oh,
So, it was quite a bit of hiking.
yeah. Yeah.
Had we spiked out, we probably would have cut that down at least, 4 miles or so, a day, which, it adds up. It adds up.
Yeah.
But Anyway, we that first morning we got out, and I literally stepped out of the cabin. I got up before everybody, and it was, pitch black, and I make this little low moan, you know, and I just kind of like ended it with a little, and then I went little chuckle right after, and then I heard one way up, way up the canyon answer back, because it was crystal clear, just cold, really cold morning. It was, um, I don't know, it was in the 20s or something, but it actually ended up snowing that day. We we decided, like, oh, we got one bugle, and let's go after it. When we got ourselves together, we went and we started going, and it started snowing. We got in on him, and I'm like, listen, in my head, I want, because this was Charles's area. He has taken
Yeah.
me to his area. I had never been there before. In my head, I was like, I want to give him the first opportunity. So I pretty much said to myself, I'm going to call for him for the rest of the, for this hunt, and or until he gets one, at least for the first couple of days anyway. That in my
Yeah.
head. But so we get on this bull, and I think he had cows. I didn't know he had cows, because he wasn't like, he wasn't being defensive ever.
Yeah.
And it was like, I didn't know that he had cows until we got really close. We messed with him pretty much the whole morning, and we got socked in with fog, and I got him to come, but he would hang up. He was like, I, I I would say it was pretty thick. I would say probably the closest he ever got was like 80 yards, maybe. I never really got eyes on. I just saw some bodies kind of going through the trees, but I never got, because I was also sitting back. And Charles, I don't think ever really got a good clean look at him. We end up glassing him up later that afternoon, right before, right for the evening hunt. We put another move on him. But anyway, we were kind of like going and going. We put a lot of miles on that day. I think that day we did about 14 or so. And we had to stop and make a campfire. It was freaking got so cold and windy, and snow was coming sideways. So everything kind of shut up. I glassed up in the whiteout. I, like, before it got really bad, I glassed up this little raghorn bull, and I'm like, "Hey, Charles, you want to shoot this bull?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go shoot it." And he stalked it, and he got like, I don't know, I think 50 yards from it.
Oh wow.
And he just needed him to make one more step to give him a better shot, because he was kind of quartering two. And he had him. But anyway, so in the first day, we end up having like three opportunities for him. And because like I said, we found that bull again later on in the evening, and it kind of cleared up, like it stopped snowing and the sun kind of came out. He stalked that one as well. So the next morning, I literally did the same thing, but I let out a bugle this time, and it came really much closer, and we went up. It was closer, but way straight up. It was straight up this canyon, and we went after that, and we were just chasing bugles all morning long, and really much all the way to the evening. We kept having, like, I want to say encounters, but we never had any opportunities on that second day. And I was like, well, whatever. This is cool, man. We're still seeing tons of elk. We're getting into things. Charles actually had an opportunity to shoot it. We had a deer tags also. He had an opportunity to shoot a young buck, and we decided to pass on it. But then the very next morning, we're like, we think these elk are going to be right where they were again. They were feeding, because we never bumped them. We never really, they never knew that we were there. And again, from camp, I got them to light up. In Arizona, I try to get as close as I possibly can in the dark. Like, I want to get to the herd while it's still dark before they decide to start moving.
Hmm.
Because in my head, I figured it out too from being up there the previous day. They were feeding in an open meadow, right? And they're just, as soon as it got light, they started, kind of working, not exactly when it turned light, but within 30 minutes of it became, first light, they started moving into the trees and so on and so forth. I'm like, yeah, let's just go. Let's get up there. We got really close in there. When it was just turned first light, we were probably within 200 yards of them. It was
Oh, wow.
just starting to get light. And I said, listen, we're going to get in really close, and I'm going to pretend like I'm a bull trying to call his cows away. I'm going to do a bull call, calling cows, bugle, roundup, bugle, whatever you want, whoever you talk to,
Yeah.
give you a different, terminology for it. But so let's get in there. Let's press them real close and let's do that. And we did that. We got in fairly close, but I didn't have the right, I feel like we didn't have the right setup for it. And it was already really light, at this point, by the time we snuck in close enough. And I could see the bull. He was a good bull. Probably like that 340 class bull,
Mm.
like especially for public land.
Yeah, that's good solid bull.
He was a slammer, right? And he had a giant harem. So I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work. But let's stay in this tree line. We had this little rise between us and them. It might work. I don't know. I did it. And of course, he fired up. He like cut me off before I was even done. But he kind of like, for lack of better terminology, like mock charged. He like came like 50 yards and he stopped, and he's just looking around, waiting for me to show myself. And yeah, we probably could have shot a cow at that point. We were probably close enough to some of his cows. But it never worked out. He could never pull him out of that herd. Like if I had a little bit better situation terrain wise where he had to really come to look,
Yeah.
I think we could have made that happen. But it didn't happen. Now that very same bull we ended up having an encounter with on day 4. But so they start moving up through the trees, and of course we stayed with the herd. We're following the herd, and he's just light. And now as he's going, he's bugling, he's rounding up his cows and bugling the whole way up through. And now he's getting other bulls to go off. And I'm like, okay, well, we're going to kind of get into this like little rut fest situation here. We get to this point, and it's kind of hard to paint the picture, but it's like where two intersecting ridge lines meet, and you got a really distinct saddle and a big wide open sagebrush face. And then it's like, it's all, I don't know if those are fir trees or whatever. I don't, they're definitely not ponderosa pines. I don't know. I know that, but they're pine trees. And, and on the whole side, and then it dips off to a spring down to our left, and the saddle's up and to the right, and in front of us is that sage bowl. And we get there, and we start hearing a bull bugling from like where the direction of the spring is.
Mm-hmm.
But we could tell he's a little bit further off, but it sounds like he might be coming up that cut. And the bull that we were chasing, he went off into the right. We come over, and my cameraman goes, John. And he sees two cows up coming over the top of that sage bowl. And I'm like, oh shit, we're kind of like in the opening. So we like kind of quickly back to the tree line. And here comes, an absolute slob, the giant bull, like 360 bull, pushing 12 cows over the top.
Is he heading towards that water, or?
No, he was just coming to that sagebrush to open up. And I think the lead cow kind of caught movement, because we were in a stare off, and we had just shed layers too, because we were moving fast, and we were trapped there for an hour with these, and they never came down. They would kind of like stay. I think the closest we were was 140 yards maybe. And I'm like, and he's just pushing. The bull never knew anything, but the cow, there was like two cows that just kept staring down where we were. We were just laying there, just waiting. I'm like praying, actually. We were praying that we're just going to keep working their way down. I think they would have come had that cow not kind of caught some movement at the end when we were trying to get into cover. Otherwise, we were literally in the sagebrush. And they end up coming over and, like I said, got into about 140 yards, and then they turned around and eventually fed back up and over where they came from, which was so. All the while, this other bull's bugling down here, and that bugle's getting closer and closer. We could tell. I'm like, he's going to that spring, right? So as soon as they cleared the top, we started going towards the spring. I'm like, let's get over to here. This bull sounds like he's a location bugle. He's got to be by himself. Let's get over there. Let's go give him what he wants. And there was two like elk trails that like transected this little saddle that we were kind of moving around, right? And I took the lower one, thinking that Charles and Dan was my cameraman and good friend of mine. We're going to take the same route. They didn't. And so when we got across onto the other side and we were heading to the spring, I was 50 or 60 yards in front of them. And I'm very aggressive, like super aggressive. And Charles is not. He's the opposite. His handle on Instagram is Shadow Trekker. Like he's a very sneaky guy. I'm not. I'm like a bull in a china shop kind of guy. So they're kind of moving slower, and I'm like, let's charge. So I'm like way ahead of them, and then I turn around and I realize that they're not there. But I hear the bull in front of me, and I had just made two cow chirps, like low ones, and I did it because the trail we were on was like, it was almost like volcanic rock. It was like really loud.
Oh,
Usually when you're on an elk trail, it's because it's beaten. It's usually quieter, right?
yeah.
But it was kind of crunchy sound, and I'm like, oh man, he might be able to hear this. I don't know. So I kind of just made it sound like I was a cow.
Smart.
Freaking ripped. He rips a bugle right after that. So I run up to the edge of the trees because it was like converging and it was going to come out to another opening. And I hear his bugle and he's closer. And I'm like, oh shit. I just get down, got my pack on, everything's still, and I freaking knock an arrow. And they're coming up behind me and they realize what's going on. So they hang back like 50 yards behind me. And then Charles cow calls. I turn to him and I say cow call, like he saw my mouth and I said cow call, and he chirps, right? And here comes the bull, just lumbering, comes around the corner. As soon as he comes around the corner, I'm at full draw. And I had like pre-arranged a couple of things. There wasn't much. It was pretty wide open right there. So like I knew I was going to have to really kind of, guess. And he was facing like quartering to me, but I was aiming for his neck. And I'm like, I'm at that spot right now where I'm like, if he has enough time to react and turn, he's still gonna either catch it like, straight in the neck, like across the neck, like a broadside through the neck, or I'm gonna hit where I'm aiming. And and luckily for me, the one thing that kind of where I kind of lucked out is I had misjudged him about 5 yards, and so when he kind of dropped a little bit, it actually kind of worked to my favor. I think I think it would have been lethal either way. But so he gets there, he's looking at me, and I could tell he's gonna go, and I'm like, I'm gonna shoot now. That's it, because he's gonna go. And I shot, and of course he reacted a little bit, but my arrow hit right where I wanted to. And like I said, he kind of dropped a little bit, which kind of helped me out. And he ran right back to the spring, and he died right there at the spring.
Oh,
It was pretty incredible.
that
Hunt is up on my YouTube too, as well.
Oh, good. I was going to ask you if you got it all on film.
Yeah, those guys started rolling right after,
Nice.
and I had just filmed myself too going to them on my phone.
Oh,
Not great. It worked out. It worked out really good.
yeah.
So yeah, Spent the rest of the day packing him out. And then we still had some time that afternoon, but I was spent. And Charles was like, I'm going to go out. So Charles went out by himself. He's an animal. Anyway, so he didn't have anything going on that. But then in the next few days, we got on that big 360. We got on that 340. It was a great hunt. It just, for some reason, every time we made an opportunity for Charles, it, like, at the very last second it fell apart. The wind would change, or something crazy. The most memorable was with that 340 again. Was almost the same scenario. They went up through that same saddle we were talking about, and we followed them. And we saw, like, we know where they're going because they went this way. We never chased them the day before, but we know they're going this way. We got in on him. We came through the trees, and we could see him, like, walking back and forth, just trying to round his cows up and get him to wherever he wanted to go. And I'm like, we have the terrain now. We're going to make this work. I'm like, go set up over here, and I'm going to drop back here. And so I swung back around, and I tried to, and I did the same scenario. Like, I want to try to call his cows away. He bugled, and I cut him off with, like, a bull calling cows bugle. And he came boom, 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 right to the edge. And it was such a crappy situation because the aspect of, or the slope was so steep right there. Had Charles moved up where I had really wanted him to go, like, he hung back where there was some more cover. And we weren't able to communicate because I was 60. Even though he could see me talking, he wasn't looking at me. Dan kept looking back at me, and I was trying to communicate to Dan, and I don't think Dan was telling him right. Well, we found out later on that he wasn't. He was like, he misunderstood what I'm like, push up, push up, push up, push up. Because he basically, I don't know. It's hard to paint this picture on a podcast, in words. If you picture an elk coming right to the edge of, like, a steep decline, right? Charles and Dan were on the downside of that decline. If they were moved up 5 more yards, they would have saw the head and neck of this elk. Like, that's how close he came. And he looked. And where I effed up was, instead of me making the bugle and then moving behind this tree that was right there, or even setting up behind the tree, what I wanted to do was, to pull him in the direction of Charles.
Right.
I made the bugle. Instead of me sitting there watching him coming, I should have, like, got behind a tree. I just got down and laid down. And I realized, and I'm not 100% sure, but my inReach was on my backpack over my left shoulder. And the sun was
glaring off it.
I think sun was reflecting off, because I caught that reflection many times as I was hiking, if it flipped forward.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he got to that edge. He would have kept on coming, maybe a little bit more, maybe that 5 yards or whatever, had he not seen that reflection. And he just sat there and he stared at me. And I'm kind of, like, looking out of the corner of my eye, like, laying down in the sagebrush right there. And I'm like, oh shit, come on. And I thought that at this point, they got to be able to see him, but they couldn't. And I got over to where he was after it all kind of fell apart. And I looked at it. And I'm like, oh my God, if you would have just went up to that next little bush like I wanted you to, like, we would have killed this thing, right? Yeah. So it was just a series of this. And then I don't remember if it wasn't the last day. It was the second to last day. We got on that 360. And this is one of the issues. See, normally Charles and I work really well together. Like I said, I'm very go, 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 go. And he's very, like, let's take it easy. Let's take it easy. So we kind of balance each other out, right?
Yeah.
And this was the first hunt that I felt like our conflicting styles hurt us, because we sat there, like, on this bull. This happened actually several times. We're like, if we would have just went, instead of debating back and forth, we should probably do this, or we should probably do. We wasted like 20 minutes watching this bull and cows down here. Like, if we would have got over there and got in position where we wanted to, we talked about it, like, let's get right there. If we get right there, the freaking elk came right to that spot. Like, we would have killed him. Anyway, so they got to that spot and they ended up so starting to bed down in these trees over there. So we're like, all right, well, cool. The wind's good. Let's just go make a move on them. Right. We left Dan up top to film from up top. We get over there. We're 30 yards from the bull, or 30 yards from one of his cows, and probably within 50 yards of the bull. And everything is working out great. I'm like, all right. I'm going to call from right here because it was super thick. There was no way to really kind of getting any closer without getting busted. No sooner than that thought process happened, the wind switches. We both, when we looked at each other, was screwed. Boom, the whole herd busts out. And I'm like, oh, like, just dumb crap like that.
Yeah.
Um,
There's so many times where you think nothing could screw this up, for lack of better terms, and then just like you said, you think, this is perfect. Everything's going to go right. And then
I never think that. I never think nothing is. I'm such a pessimist. I think it's always going to blow up. Like that's my, I'm bad when it comes to that, but it doesn't stop me from trying. We actually, after that blew up and he ran the other direction, the other satellite bulls, we thought they were satellite bulls. It actually wasn't a satellite bull. They were still bugling. So we went after them and we got to this point and we were so spent. We were so far back. This was the day we did the most miles.
And just packed your elk out the day before, right?
Yeah. 2 days before. Yeah. But oh man. And so this was like day 5 and I shot mine on day 3. But this bull, the bugle sounded like he was down below us. And in essence, he was down and back up the other side.
Oh.
And so when we got down and he was, everything I threw at him, he was answering. Like I quit bugling and I was just cow calling the whole way. And he just kept trying to call us up to him. And I was like, oh, where the hell is he, man? I feel like he should be right here. And then we started getting really close. And I'm like, actually, Charles said, he's like, I think he's up. And I'm like, oh, man, you might be right. So anyway, we got over there and sure as hell, we could see him pushing cows back and forth, and he was like just up this. There was no real good approach. And we opted not to because it just didn't make sense. I mean, it was one of those, like, I don't even know why they were on this hillside, but it was stupid, like stupid steep.
That's probably why. No one's going to come after me here.
Yeah. I don't know. We gave it hell and he had some opportunities, but it was never like just a solid opportunity. And I feel like decision making really killed us on his thing. Like it was like, oh, if we would have did this, we would have made it. Like, it was just one little difference in or timing. It was, but yeah, it was a good time. We had a great time.
Yeah. You guys hunting together this year? You got you're waiting on a tag to find out if you drew one. What happened with that?
I think I find out at the end of this month whether or not I draw it. I think it's in May, at the end of May. Those results come out.
Okay.
So yeah, and if not, I have a tag in Idaho. That's kind of
You can always get rid of that because they go on sale. But
I don't know. Whatever, we'll see.
You'll get to hunt somewhere at least.
I also have a guy that drew a hunt here that I had guided previously in a late archery hunt, and he's got a unit that I know very well. It's not an excellent unit. It's actually not a great unit at all anymore. It used to be a fantastic unit. There's a lot of elk there, but as far as trophy quality is concerned, it's gone really, really, really downhill. But so I may, if I don't get the tag that I want, I may still turn that Idaho tag back in and just guide him.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So we'll see. Because he really wants me to guide him. He does. I mean, he's still gonna hunt with us either way, but he would prefer me over.
Oh, I see.
Just because we have.
Yeah, you built the rapport up with.
No, but yeah, I'm going elk hunting either way, basically.
Whether you're hunting or guiding or something.
Yeah, exactly. So
cool.